Hey, Trevor Matthews here from Refrigeration Mentor, and I'm at the NASRC Natural Refrigerant Training Event for Technicians here in Pittsburgh. We're at the Steam Fitters Local UA 449. I'm here hanging out with Morgan Smith, the Program Director for NASRC.org.
That's right.
Morgan, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, we do these interviews once in a while, but every year we want to let you know some more information, really help get involved with NASRC and some of these training events. But I have a few questions for you, Morgan. Naturals are coming, they're already here, and there is a big shift that has been happening over the years, but now it's really happening because regulation changes. What are some of the things that you are seeing that's helping the shift move along?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So comparing where the industry is now to just 5 years ago, it's a completely different situation.
Yeah.
Regulations are definitely a big driver. There's a lot happening at the federal level. There's a lot happening at the state level in certain states, but certainly that's not the only thing. There's also a lot of pressure on these businesses to establish corporate climate targets and live up to them. And so all of that has added up to, this massive transition that the industry is going through right now. If you look 5 years ago, there really weren't incentive programs to help with this. The regulations were not very clear. There was writing on the wall, but no one knew exactly what they needed to do. There weren't nearly as many training resources for natural refrigerants out there. Now, flash forward, we have $65 million available in California, a number of other states establishing incentive programs, going after funding to try to be able to offer something similar. Other types of funding support, carbon financing has really taken off. Wow. There's support there for the retailers that want to move towards natural refrigerants. There's demand from the retailers. And now, while there's still a lot of challenges that need to be addressed, there's a lot more training opportunities for technicians. That being said, that's probably our biggest hurdle is making sure that the workforce is ready. You can have all the funding in the world, you can have all the demand, all the technology can be there. If you don't have the people to actually install that technology and service it, we can't move forward as an industry. Yeah,
and that's totally fair, and I totally understand. It is all about workforce development. You need the people to be able to service that equipment, maintain that equipment, build that equipment. All these different things come into play because it is a new technology and different. And most people don't understand refrigeration. They understand that they can go to a store and grab their milk, but they don't understand the inner workings behind the scenes from the supply chain, the manufacturers, the end users, the contractors. So that's a big thing. And then that leads all onto these technicians who have to learn new things. Sometimes it's almost learning from scratch some of these new technologies, and they have to kind of start over and then prepare themselves for these technologies. So how can some of the end users really learn more about the funding that may help them, and what is involved in that? Because I know I've been involved in many different funding programs and learning about them, and there's always hurdles, you know what I mean? I know you guys are working that out, but how can end users start to learn more from you guys to figure out what direction they should go?
Yeah, it's a great question. So regarding funding you're talking about? Yeah, so in California, that funding we're expecting to launch at the end of Q2.
Awesome.
And that will primarily go towards replacing existing systems and equipment. The first round of funding was only for food retail. This next round will also include industrial refrigeration and cold storage, as well as a small bucket of funding for some equipment replacements. And so we're going to be announcing some public engagement opportunities over the next couple months, and then again, the program should launch at the end of Q2. We are definitely encouraging people to get ready, start thinking about what projects they might want to do. Again, it's entirely focused on existing facilities. So all projects have to be done by January 2027. So it's a tight timeline. These projects can take some time. So being ready, working with your contractor, working with your OEM, having some plans in place, that's the best advice that I can give. And of course, NASRC is here to support that. At the same time, I'll just call out, there are other funding sources coming to the market. New Jersey actually just announced a pilot that they're putting out. So they'll be providing funding in 3 metropolitan areas as part of the pilot, and then they plan to hopefully expand that in the future. Other states are definitely looking for funding support, looking at the Inflation Reduction Act funds. So hopefully we'll see more and more states coming through so that it's not just California end users that have access to this type of funding. So that's something NASRC will be continuing to communicate about. If you sign up for our mailing list or follow us on social media, be sure you'll get those announcements.
I love that. One of the things, though, I see in a lot of funding programs, you have 55,000 retail locations that's involved with NARC. A lot of times I see like the bigger retailers, they have a better understanding than the smaller retailers, because there's way more smaller retailers than the bigger ones, but the bigger ones have bigger teams. They can understand and have people that get involved in these programs a lot quicker. How can smaller independent, maybe supermarket owners start to be part of the conversation? What do you recommend for them to do? Because that's who I'm looking at, because there's a lot of them, they don't really know. They don't even know CO2 is a thing, some of them, right? So how do we get those independent end users or supermarkets get involved?
That's a really great point, and I think that's a huge thing to be thinking about here. The national chains in many cases are ready to take advantage of the funding. One thing I'll say is that for the California program, there's a separate bucket of funding specifically for those smaller and independent retailers. We know it's going to take them a little bit longer to get their applications in order, to get the attention of their partners in some cases. So that's one thing to note. The contractors is really the key for those smaller and independent retailers, because in many cases, the same person who's technically in charge of making the decisions about the refrigeration system is also the person that's in charge of thinking about what to stock on the shelves and every other management decision for that site. It's really too much. And so in many cases, we find those smaller retailers really depend on their contractors for their information. And that's where events like this come in. So it's not just making sure that the contractors are comfortable on working on CO2, which is huge, and propane. That's a huge goal of this event, but it's also about, helping them understand why they should be learning about this, making them feel more comfortable talking to their customers about it, and then even learning about what regulations are coming down the pipeline and why they should be helping their customers prepare and how. Without having the contractor force aware of what's going on here, it's going to be really hard to get the small and independent retailers up to speed.
Wow. So that's a big thing. If you're a contractor, a supermarket, refrigeration commercial contractor, you need to get involved with organizations like NASRC. You need to start talking about this with your customers, because this change is happening because regulations are making the move, and that's going to happen. They're going to get to a point where they have to move. And all their new stores are going to have to go there. Depending on what state's going to be different regulations. But you need to help prepare your customers. That's bringing them value. And if you're an end user and you're a small independent and you're watching this, reach out to NASRC. They're willing to help and talk you through this, because they want to help you as well. Because we know that they don't have this information all the time. They may rely on their contractor, and their contractor may not know about this information. So we got to work together in the industry to really evolve this stuff so people are aware of it.
Absolutely, and that's really the principle of all of our initiatives, is that if everybody gives a little, if the industry comes together, we can really move forward together. That's why we've taken on the workforce development program. We've got all the right stakeholders involved, and you can't just have pockets of different companies and individuals moving this forward. It has to be the industry moving forward together. So that's what we're trying to coordinate.
I love that. So any final thoughts for contractors or end users, even technicians? Because we're at the event today, there's over 400 technicians here learning from different manufacturers, different training organizations, and we really want to help those technicians be prepared, be confident. Any final thoughts for them?
Yeah, absolutely. One technician came up to me yesterday and said, "This is so great. I really appreciate you proactively putting this out there. Most of the time we're just sort of thrown to the wolves." So I think we're here for you as a resource. We want to do more of these events, and please reach out to us. We've got all the right partners involved. We can connect you with the OEMs. We want to make sure that you guys have the resources that you need, because that's the critical piece of the industry moving forward together.
Awesome, Morgan. So check out their website, nsarc.org. Go learn more. If you're an end user, if you're a contractor, get involved, because this shift is happening and you should be prepared. Thanks, Morgan.
Thanks so much, Trevor.